Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to my channel, The Coherence Path. All roads lead to you. My name is Stefan Senna, and on this channel I talk about consciousness, share my art, um, and discuss how awareness um, unfolds and participates in our lives. I have some videos where I'm out maybe fishing or doing something else and just talk about a particular subject. And then I have some videos that go over particular paintings of mine. And I'm trying to get as many of these videos done of my paintings because I have quite a few to go through. And besides them being put in a book, um, this is probably the only opportunity to really discuss my process for doing it and what they might mean to me in the moment. Just assuming that you've never seen any of my videos, I'll just give you a brief summation. In 1997, I spent about 3 years in bed with a brain injury due to a couple auto accidents and a diving incident that happened prior. I had no balance. My eyes were tracking differently. I had no short-term memory. And anyway, I got into an argument with the universe and was told to paint, and then had an experience that was, we generally think of as near-death experience or out-of-body experience. If you want to listen to more information on that, just look for one of my videos. It's about my near-death experience. Anyway, I was an artist as a kid. Didn't want to be one as an adult, and now that's all I want. That's all I do. Well, it's not all I do. I work as a carpenter, helping clients solve residential home problems or just design changes. But anyway, I get visionary flashes when I ask the question, what do I paint? They instantaneously happen, and they remain in my consciousness until I paint them out. And this is one of those. I was hanging this on the wall. I cut off a lot of my paintings off the stretcher bars because they take up too much room. I don't have any room to stack them all against the wall, or I don't have a separate room to put them all in. So I just cut them off the stretcher bars so I can roll them up. Anyway, this is a painting I did, I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago. I always have fun hanging these on the wall because my brain still doesn't see level, which, you think, oh, guy works as a carpenter and you can't see level. That's right. Luckily, there's a thing called a level, so that comes in very handy. But anyway, this painting happened as 95% of my paintings. I ask the question, what do I paint? And an image. I just have a highly visionary experience that comes to my consciousness. It blocks out all reality, where I'm bodiless. I'm floating in space, and I see an experience, and then I pop out of it. I'm back into my human lens of being human and seeing everything around me. Excuse me. I guess I need a little more coffee to clear my throat this morning. Anyway, so this painting happened that way. I just asked the question, what do I paint? I had the experience. This is pretty much what I saw. I painted it out. Now, where and how I had this experience was I was at the time going to a drumming circle event with some friends, and my kid was with me. They were, let's see, they were probably about 7 or 8, so I would guess that maybe this is a lot longer ago than I thought. Well, maybe they were around 9. Yeah, they might have been around 9, so, but still, it's a lot longer ago than I thought, so this is probably 10 or 11 years ago. It's funny how time flies, as they say. So I was at the event, and somebody who owned the place asked me if I wanted to paint when I was there. I thought, sure, I'll just paint, the people banging on drums and dancing around, that sounds fun. And a youngster came with me, and they were busy climbing a tree that was right there. It was at nighttime, and people were having fun. And so as I was setting up my easel and my canvas, paints and getting the water for the brushes and everything, as I looked at the canvas, I said, what do I paint? And this visionary experience came to me. So I started painting it out. Now I had no idea what this visionary image was about and what meaning my mind would place on it, or my consciousness would receive from it. I just started painting it out. Now, when you look at this image, it doesn't fit into any sort of typical, landscape, or, it might fit into a contemporary abstract, maybe. Imagine a whole wall in a gallery full of paintings that were similar, and you say, oh, that's an abstract artist. But as I started painting this painting, I knew exactly what this experience was about. So now I'll give you my interpretation of it. So if we use the metaphor of the sky, which, has been used in Buddhism and other teachings, and I've mentioned it referring to some of my other paintings. If we use ourselves as the sky as a metaphor for ourselves, that we're boundless, that we have no end, that we contain everything within our reality, and that things that we focus on or experience are like clouds that float through us, I think that relates to this image. Obviously, there's a ring of light or a ring of white in the center. Now, if you look inside of that ring, you see beyond it, it kind of feels like there's a sky beyond. Kind of like you're looking up at a cloudy sky, and there's some sort of light phenomenon happening in the sky. And so the rays of light coming toward the viewer to the outside of the canvas from that ring gives a feeling to me of travel and speed, like my consciousness is traveling toward that sky, but that ring of light like a tunnel or a opening or a door that's closing is restricting um, the experience of being completely just out in the open in the sky. So it's kind of like, you could also say that sort of like a net. It's surrounding uh, the viewer. As I look at that, I can't see the whole sky because this whole net of light is restricting my ability to see the whole sky. And right at that edge of the ring, the light is the brightest. There's that's like the cusp of resistance where you're trying to get beyond something, but you can't. You're working with it. You know your awareness is capable of going beyond that resistance. Could be a point of view, an idea, belief system, experience, inspiration. Even inspirations can sort of restrict our consciousness because we get so inspired at the moment and we think about it in a certain way, but it may be that there's a lot more to unfold. And I did that when I was a kid. I would, because I didn't have any ideas of my own, I just copied other people's ideas. And about the time I got done with one drawing, I'd get so excited to do another drawing, like of a wolf or a deer or elk or something, birds. I wouldn't really broaden my idea or awareness of how I could portray those animals because I just quickly would look for a photograph that I liked, and then I'd start copying it, and the background was sort of secondary. But if I would have known that I could have just relaxed and taken more time to consider the subject and how the composition might be even more interesting, then I wouldn't have restricted that inspiration. So we can have resistance about things that bother us, but we can also have restrictions on things that inspire us. Maybe if you're a songwriter, you might have a great melody or idea for a music song, and certain words come to you, but you're so inspired that you just stick with those words, but maybe some other words might work better. I don't know, I'm not a songwriter, but at any rate, so we have this feeling to me, and this image that it came to me. I have a feeling of flow. I'm traveling toward the center. I'm traveling to go beyond the center ring of light through out into the atmosphere, to the sky where it's free and I can just go wherever I want. There's this restriction or confinement, this narrowing. And then there are these objects that are floating in the space around me. There's 3 dark spheres and they're kind of sparkling with light. And then there's one lighter one down below that's it's kind of a different shape. It's not round. It seems to be less structured, less material. Maybe something that could represent something that maybe my consciousness is aware of, but I'm not really paying much attention to because I've learned to let it go, and it's gradually just going to dissipate and disappear as I continue to think better thoughts about it. Let's say if I have a concern about, maybe I injured my leg or something, and I was aware of it a lot because it hurt a lot, but now I've accepted that my body's just got to heal it, so it's becoming less and less of a focus point. But the other three objects in the painting, the dark spheres, those you can see are more solid. So those could be a metaphor for things that really concern me, or things that I'm really ignoring or resisting, and so they're present with me. So in this traveling of my consciousness towards complete neutrality and freedom of consciousness, there's these three objects that have some weight, and that might be something that might be how you feel about a relationship. Excuse me. Let's say you're in a relationship, and it could be in a most positive way too. Let's say you're in a relationship with somebody you really care for, and there's something wonderful that you want to do together, whether it's getting married or go on a trip or start a band or start a business, whatever it is. And there's things that need to happen within yourself to make yourself ready or to take action toward that good goal. And it's kind of weighing on you. Like, how many times do people, before they get married, they have all these, high contrast feelings and thoughts about the whole event because, it's a big commitment. First of all, it's a lot of social commitment. You tell everybody. Monetary commitment. You got to pay for the wedding and everything else, the vacation. And then there's an even bigger monumental commitment of, actually living with the person and, making plans with them. So that's a very positive, wonderful thing that we can experience. But it can still be a point of contention or a point of resistance within ourselves because we're having to navigate all the aspects of that event. It could also be another one of those could be a new job, so it's a new opportunity. But there's still a lot of things about that. Oh gosh, this new job, I'm going to have to get up an hour earlier. How am I going to do that? I maybe barely get to work on time as it is. So there can be positive points of resistance or attention. Just talking about resistance and attention, in some ways, attention and resistance is the same thing, I think. The ego, places attention on particular things that it's wanting to control. It's wanting to solve. And as long as we're trying to figure it out, instead of just going with the flow, then there is resistance. Because if we just accept that everything's going to work out fine, then and let it go, then it generally will. There might be another thing or two that comes up, or there might be a lot of things that comes up that we have to accept and let go. And that's a process. Just like if you're climbing Mount Everest, you might start at the bottom and say, well, I'm just going to go with the flow. I'm just going to take one step at a time, and I'm going to climb up the mountain. But along the way, there's going to be all these little moments of, geez, why am I doing this? Is this worth it? Am I going to be able to do this? Because climbing Mount Everest is no small feat. So, and then of course these spheres, these little black spheres, they could be points of negative resistance. Now, my interpretation that they're black means that they're dense, that they're something that absorbs energy or light. It's like something that absorbs our energy, our attention, our focus. So as long as we're trying to travel, toward awareness and acceptance and going with the flow, anything that's in our field of awareness that draws our attention, that we're not wanting to deal with, is out there floating in space. Um, Again, I'll say that I don't really uh, go along with the idea that we have a subconscious mind. There is no program that's just making us do things. We're consciously choosing with our free will. It's just that on some, our consciousness is so broad and expansive, like multiple radio stations. The radio stations that we don't listen to, they're still there. We might be listening to our favorite, you know, symphony music or rock music or pop music or country music, whatever it is. But all those other stations are still there. All you have to do is turn the dial and you'll hear them. And it's the same way with consciousness. You might be focusing on what you're thinking about right now, but your awareness is still aware of all the other stuff that you haven't dealt with, all the other stuff that you're inspired by that you're maybe ignoring. It's all still there. It's excuse me, it's plain, and it's all music within our consciousness. So, but those things do draw some attention, or they do draw some energy. So I think that's why when I had this visionary experience, those spheres appeared to me in that experience as dark spheres, because we know that dark absorbs light. And the more something draws our attention, or the more we have resistance to it, the more light it's going to draw. I had a repeated dream. Well, I don't think that's. I was going to talk about a dream I had when I was a kid, but I don't think it's really exactly correlating with this image. But so we'll let that go. But anyway, there goes somebody's horn. They're getting ready to go to work. Anyway, so that's my sort of interpretation of this experience I had. My own consciousness, or collective consciousness, or the consciousness within which we all are, was communicating to me this particular bit of information. Now, some people, they'll get books, a whole book of downloads. A lot of people in their near-death experience will get downloads of information, and that's happened to me after my experience. I sat down and wrote for weeks. I just kept writing and writing and writing. I mean, I stacked up 400 pages of stuff I was writing, and what I found was it was just sort of the same information over and over and over. And it wasn't because I was writing out this huge, meaningful book that was going to change the world, which is kind of what I was wondering when I was writing it. Like, this information just kept coming to me. No, it was just, it can all be summated. All that stack of papers could be put into into one paragraph. And that is, that we are awareness, but we're living through a human lens that has an ego, and those two are, for the most part, contrary to one another. And our purpose here is to learn how to be more in the state of awareness, and proof of that is if we're not acting, but we're actually being love and being kind, because there's no fear in pure awareness or unconditional love. You're just accepting everything as it is. You're allowing information to come to you. You're navigating it with a state of awareness. And you're living in the now moment of that awareness. And just accepting everyone else the way they are too. That pretty much sums it all up. And as long as we're doing that, anything we think about or we want or desire, it naturally just comes to us. But that doesn't mean our ego's happy, because our ego wants everything right now. So anyway, information will just come to us in that state of awareness. But, for whatever reason, the universe chose me to receive that information through images. And you could say that a lot of my paintings, and it might be a couple hundred of them or more, have the same message about awareness, but different images communicate to different people in different ways, and including myself. I might be receiving a similar image or message from a lot of my paintings, but it's communicated to me in different ways, and that's just my own journey. So hopefully you've gotten maybe something out of this. If you don't want to listen to me talk, but you want to sit with the image like I do, and just sort of let your awareness feel and receive whatever you receive from it, if you receive anything. I'm not saying you're gonna, but if you want to do that, just turn the volume off of the video and just sit with the image. I appreciate you stopping by my channel. Please subscribe if you find these helpful or interesting, and I'll see you on the next video, mate. I appreciate you stopping by. Have a great day out there.